It was a quiet day on the alien world. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the rocky landscape. A human, freshly arrived on this distant planet, was exploring the new environment. He had been assigned to the research station for a few weeks now, but there was something about this place that intrigued him. The air was fresh, and the strange plants swayed gently in the wind. He had a feeling he might learn something valuable here. As he walked along the cliff edge, lost in his thoughts, he suddenly noticed a figure in the distance. It was a woman standing on a higher platform, looking out across the land. She was unlike anyone he had ever seen before, tall, with an elegant presence that seemed to radiate power. Her skin was a shade of blue, soft and shimmering under the setting sun. He couldn't help but stare. She wasn't like the other aliens he had met. There was something unique about her. She didn't wear armor or strange clothing like the others. Instead, she wore a flowing robe that moved with the breeze, and her long silver hair caught the light. The human was unsure if he should approach her. He had been warned about the different species on this planet, told that some could be dangerous, but there was something about her that didn't feel threatening. He decided to step forward cautiously. As he walked closer, the alien woman turned to face him. Her eyes, deep and thoughtful, locked onto his. For a moment, there was an almost uncomfortable silence between them. She didn't speak, but she didn't turn away either. The human could feel the weight of her gaze, like she was studying him in the same way he was studying her. He cleared his throat and offered a small smile. "Hello," he said, trying to break the silence. "I'm new here. I've been sent to help with the research station." The alien woman raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. The human couldn't help but be drawn to her. She was beautiful in a way he had never seen before. She had sharp, delicate features that gave her an air of grace, and there was a strange glow to her, as though she were something otherworldly. After a few more moments of awkward silence, the human couldn't help himself. He leaned forward slightly and said, "You are very beautiful." The alien woman's eyes widened, and for the briefest second, her expression softened, almost as if she hadn't expected the compliment. Her lips parted, but no words came out. She looked at him with a mix of confusion and something else. Was it fear? Surprise? The human quickly realized that he might have said something wrong. I didn't mean to offend you," he stammered, suddenly nervous. "I just meant, you have a unique kind of beauty." The alien woman's expression remained unreadable. She didn't say anything. She simply took a small step back, her gaze still fixed on him. For the first time, the human noticed how distant and unapproachable she seemed. The human stood there, watching the alien woman take a step back. Her sudden movement caught him off guard. She had been so still just moments before, like a statue made of light and shadow, and now she was retreating. His mind raced, trying to figure out what he had said wrong. Had he made a mistake? He felt a wave of anxiety wash over him. His compliment had been genuine, meant as a simple expression of admiration. But instead of a smile or a gracious response, he had been met with silence and a sudden retreat. "I'm sorry if I upset you," he said, trying to make amends. He took a cautious step forward, his voice soft. "I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable." The alien woman still didn't answer. She was silent, her eyes wide with something that the human couldn't quite place. It wasn't anger, nor was it sadness. It was more like confusion, like she had heard something impossible and wasn't sure how to react. She finally blinked and looked away, her eyes focusing on the distant horizon, as if she needed to gather herself. The human wasn't sure if he should press on or leave her to her thoughts. But the silence between them grew thick, and he couldn't just walk away. "I didn't mean to offend you," he said again, his tone quieter now, unsure. "In my world, it's normal to compliment someone. It's just something I felt was true." She turned back to him, her gaze sharp and intense, though there was still an unreadable quality to her expression. She didn't seem angry, but her eyes held a mixture of emotions that were hard to understand. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the alien woman spoke, her voice low, almost to herself. No one has ever said that to me. The human's heart skipped a beat. What do you mean? He asked, trying to understand. The alien woman hesitated for a moment before responding. Where I come from, beauty is not something we discuss. It is not valued as it is in your world. We do not see ourselves that way. The human frowned. He hadn't thought about it that way. To him, beauty was more than just physical appearance. It was a combination of things: character, strength, and the way someone made you feel. But to this alien woman, it seemed like beauty was a concept she didn't know how to handle. I didn't mean to make you feel strange, the human said, his voice sincere. Where I come from, we see beauty in many forms. It's not just about looks. It's about how someone carries themselves, how they act, and how they make others feel. The alien woman looked at him, a flicker of something like curiosity in her eyes. It wasn't the cold, detached look she had given him earlier. There was a slight change, a softening, but it was still unclear whether she understood. You mean it? She asked, almost as if unsure of the words she was saying. The human nodded. Yes, I do. I meant it. You have a unique kind of beauty. Her expression didn't change much, but the tension in the air seemed to ease, just a little. For the first time, the alien woman's gaze softened, and the human noticed a subtle shift in her posture. It was almost as if she had allowed herself to relax, even if just a bit. But the moment didn't last long. She quickly turned away, her posture stiffening again. I will go now, she said, her voice quiet and distant once more. I need to think. The human stood there, feeling a mix of confusion and hope. He had seen a small crack in the wall she had built around herself, but whether it would stay open, he couldn't be sure. The next few days passed by in a strange silence between the human and the alien woman. She had kept her distance, avoiding him at the research station and taking long walks in the wilderness alone. The human couldn't stop thinking about her. What had he said wrong? Why had his words affected her so deeply? He tried to focus on his work, but every time he looked up, he found himself searching for her. He couldn't understand why a simple compliment had shaken her so much. Then, one evening, as the sun was setting, painting the sky with hues of orange and purple, the human was walking near the cliff when he spotted her again. This time, she wasn't standing alone, staring out into the distance. Instead, she was sitting on a rock, her knees drawn up to her chest. Her face was buried in her hands, and she looked deep in thought. The human hesitated, unsure whether to approach. He had no idea what had been going on inside her mind, but he couldn't leave things unresolved. He walked slowly toward her, trying not to make any noise. Hey, he said softly when he was close enough. Are you all right? The alien woman looked up quickly, startled by his voice. For a moment, she said nothing. Her eyes locked onto his, and there was a fleeting moment of vulnerability in her gaze. But it quickly disappeared, replaced by that same guarded expression. I'm fine, she replied curtly, but her voice lacked the usual strength it had when they first met. It was softer, almost fragile. The human sat down beside her on the rock, not too close, but close enough that she could feel his presence. He could see that she was struggling with something that went beyond the simple compliment he had given her. I know I probably said something wrong the other day, he said, his voice full of regret. But I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. I wanted to say that I admire you. I don't know if you've heard it before, but I think you're beautiful. The alien woman's face tightened, and she looked away, focusing on the horizon again. Her jaw clenched slightly as if fighting the emotions inside her. You don't understand, she whispered, almost to herself. The human waited patiently, not wanting to interrupt her, but his curiosity grew. What don't I understand? She took a deep breath and turned to face him, her eyes showing a mix of confusion and sadness. Where I come from, we are not like you. We don't see beauty as you do. We never hear those kinds of words. For us, What matters is strength, intelligence, power, things that have value. Beauty is not something we value. It is not even discussed. I was never taught to accept compliments like that. The human listened closely, trying to understand her culture. He had never considered that something as simple as a compliment could be so difficult for someone to process. He thought about how, back on Earth, compliments were given freely, whether it was about someone's looks, kindness, or intelligence. So when I said that to you, he continued gently, it wasn't just about how you look. It was about what I see in you, your strength, your presence. But I can see that it's not easy for you to hear. The alien woman blinked, her eyes showing a brief flash of emotion. I've never heard that before, she admitted quietly. No one has ever said something like that to me. The human smiled softly. Well, I'm saying it now. I mean it. I think you're not only beautiful, but also strong, wise, and unique. For the first time, the alien woman looked at him directly, her gaze no longer full of confusion or uncertainty. There was something new in her eyes, perhaps a glimmer of understanding, or maybe just the beginning of acceptance. I don't know what to do with those words, she said quietly, almost as if she were still processing the idea. But I appreciate you saying them. And with that, a small but significant shift seemed to take place. The tension between them had not disappeared completely, but it had lightened, if only a little. The human felt a sense of relief, as if for the first time, they were starting to understand each other just a little bit more. The days following their conversation were filled with quiet tension, but there was a shift between them. The alien woman no longer avoided the human completely. Though she remained distant, she still struggled with the compliments and the words of kindness, but there was something different now, an unspoken understanding that hadn't existed before. The human couldn't help but feel both hopeful and confused. He knew that their cultures were different, but he never realized how much of an impact something as simple as a compliment could have on someone from another world. He continued his work at the research station, but his thoughts often drifted back to the alien woman. One afternoon, he decided to take a break and explore the alien city near the research station. It was unlike anything he had ever seen before. Tall, sleek structures with shimmering surfaces, unlike the human-made buildings he was used to. The streets were filled with beings from various species, all walking with purpose. Some were humanoid, while others were more alien in shape, with scales, wings, or tentacles. Yet, despite the differences, there was a strange sense of unity among them. As he walked through the bustling city, he spotted the alien woman again. She was standing near a fountain, surrounded by a few of her people. The human hesitated, unsure if he should approach. He had already made one misstep by giving her a compliment, but he couldn't ignore the pull he felt toward her. She looked different today. There was no sadness in her eyes, but a quiet intensity that seemed to match the energy of the city around her. He took a deep breath and walked over to her, trying to be as casual as possible. When she noticed him, her eyes flickered with surprise, but she didn't look away. "Hello," the human said, offering a smile. "I didn't expect to see you here." The alien woman nodded slightly, her posture still stiff, but not as distant as before. "I come here often," she replied, her voice steady, but there was something softer in it than before. "I'm glad I ran into you," the human said, his voice lighter than before. "I was wondering, how does your people view beauty? I've been thinking about what you said." The alien woman blinked, a hint of confusion crossing her face. "Why do you want to know about beauty?" she asked, clearly puzzled. The human hesitated, unsure how to phrase his thoughts. "It's just where I come from. People often talk about beauty in many ways. It's not just about looks. People can be beautiful because of their actions, their kindness, or even their strength. But I realize that for you, maybe it's different." She seemed to consider his words carefully before responding. "Where I come from, beauty is not something we focus on. It is not something we value. What matters is intellect, skill, and the ability to contribute to our society. Those are the things that bring respect. The human nodded slowly, trying to understand. So, being told you're beautiful doesn't have much meaning for you. The alien woman sighed, looking down for a moment. No, it's not that it doesn't mean anything. It's not something we're taught to appreciate. We're taught to value strength, wisdom, and what we can achieve. Beauty doesn't come into it. The human thought for a moment. But isn't beauty a part of who you are? Doesn't it say something about how you carry yourself, how you interact with others? The alien woman didn't answer immediately. Instead, she looked at the crowd around them, her expression thoughtful. Perhaps you're right. I never thought about it like that. The human smiled gently. Maybe one day, you'll see what I see. That beauty isn't just about looks. It's about what's inside. And I think there's a lot of beauty in you. The alien woman's eyes softened, just a little, but she didn't respond. Instead, she turned her gaze back to the fountain. The human couldn't tell if she was thinking about his words or simply lost in her own thoughts. But something had shifted again, just slightly. Maybe in time, she would understand the meaning of beauty in the way humans did. The next few weeks felt like a strange balance between silence and small, unexpected moments of connection. The human and the alien woman found themselves spending more time together, though never in the way the human had imagined. It was as if they were still learning how to communicate, not just with words, but with actions and unspoken understanding. During their interactions, the human began to notice things about the alien woman that made her even more intriguing. There was the way she carried herself, always with a sense of quiet confidence, as though she was aware of the weight of her people's expectations. Yet when she spoke to him, her voice seemed to soften, and there was an occasional vulnerability in her eyes that the human hadn't seen before. One evening, while the human was working on his latest assignment at the research station, the alien woman appeared at the door of his lab. She didn't knock, but simply stood there, watching him for a few moments. He looked up, surprised to see her there. "You're not interrupting," he said with a smile, motioning to the empty chair beside him. "I could use a break anyway." The alien woman hesitated for a moment before walking into the room and sitting down. She was quiet, as usual, her gaze never fully meeting his. But today, there was something different about her demeanor. She wasn't the same cold, distant being he had first met. There was an openness now, like she was starting to lower the walls she had built around herself. "You've been working hard," she said, her voice softer than usual. "Are you always this focused?" The human chuckled. "I guess so. I tend to get lost in my work, but you're right. I could use a break." He paused for a moment, then asked, "What about you? What do you usually do when you need a break?" She looked thoughtful for a moment, then answered, "I take walks. I think. I like being alone with my thoughts." The human nodded, understanding. "I get that. Sometimes it's hard to clear your mind, but a walk can help." He leaned back in his chair and smiled. "Maybe we should go for a walk together sometime. It's always better to have someone to share it with." The alien woman's eyes flickered with something he couldn't quite interpret, maybe surprise or even hesitation. But she didn't say anything right away. She simply nodded slowly. They sat in silence for a few moments, both lost in their own thoughts. The human wondered if she was considering his offer, or if it was just something she had heard without truly thinking about it. It didn't matter, he thought. What mattered was that they were sharing space, and for the first time, it felt like a natural, comfortable thing. "Do you ever miss home?" the human asked, breaking the silence. The alien woman turned to look at him, her gaze intense yet open. "I do," she said quietly. "But I also know that I can't go back. My people, they would never understand this." She gestured between them, as if trying to explain something that was beyond words. "I don't belong in their world anymore. But I don't belong fully in yours either." The human's heart skipped a beat, sensing the depth of her words. He hadn't realized how difficult this journey must have been for her. Not just the physical distance, but the emotional one. She was in a world that didn't fully accept her, surrounded by people who didn't understand what she was going through. He leaned forward, his voice soft but steady. Maybe you don't have to fully belong anywhere. Maybe it's okay to just be you. To find your place in between, where you can be who you really are. The alien woman didn't respond at first. She simply looked at him, as though weighing his words. Then, for the first time since they had met, she gave him a small, almost imperceptible smile. I don't know if I can ever be who I want to be, she said, but maybe, just maybe, I can learn to be that person with you. The human smiled back, a warmth spreading through him. It was a simple moment, but it felt like something significant had shifted between them. They weren't just two strangers from different worlds anymore. They were two people, learning to navigate the space between them, one step at a time. The days passed, and the bond between the human and the alien woman began to grow. It was slow, but it was undeniable. They found themselves talking more, sharing thoughts and ideas in a way they never had before. Even though their cultures were vastly different, they started to understand each other on a deeper level. Each moment felt like a small victory, a step towards something neither of them fully understood, but both were willing to explore. One day, the alien woman came to the research station earlier than usual. She didn't say much when she entered the lab, but her presence was different, calmer, more at ease. She sat down across from the human, watching him work with quiet curiosity. He looked up from his computer screen and smiled, glad to see her there. "Good morning," he greeted her. "You're up early today." She nodded, a small, almost shy smile touching her lips. "I wanted to see what you were working on. It's different from what I'm used to, but it's interesting." The human leaned back in his chair, glancing at the pile of papers in front of him. "It's nothing too exciting," he said. "Just some research on local flora. But I guess I can show you what I've found. You might find it useful." He pulled up a few holographic displays, showing her data on the different plants and their properties. The alien woman looked at the screen with interest, her eyes scanning the information quickly. She was intelligent, far beyond what the human had expected, and it wasn't long before she was offering suggestions and asking questions that showed she understood the material on a deeper level. The human was impressed. "You really know a lot about this," he said, genuinely surprised. "I didn't realize you were familiar with botany." She shrugged, her smile widening just a little. "I've studied many things. My people value knowledge in all forms. I suppose I've just never had the chance to apply it in a way that felt meaningful." The human looked at her, his expression softening. "Maybe it's time you did." For a moment, the alien woman said nothing. She simply stared at the data on the screen, her face thoughtful. The silence between them wasn't awkward. It felt comfortable, as though they were both contemplating the same thing. "I've never really had someone teach me things like this," she said quietly, breaking the silence. "Where I come from, we don't have time for that kind of connection. It's all about duty and survival. Emotions are often seen as a weakness." The human nodded, understanding more than she knew. He had always been taught to be focused on work, to stay serious and avoid distractions. But over time, he had come to realize that there was something more to life than just survival and duty. "I get it," he said, "but I don't think emotions are a weakness. They make us stronger in a way, don't you think? They help us connect with others, understand the world around us." The alien woman looked at him, her eyes reflecting something deeper now, something she hadn't shared before. "I don't know if I believe that yet," she admitted, "but maybe I'm starting to understand." The human smiled, feeling a sense of warmth in his chest. It was a small thing, but it felt like progress. It was as if the alien woman was beginning to let go of the walls she had built around herself, and he was beginning to feel a sense of connection that went beyond just being a human and an alien. It was about two beings, two people, finding a way to understand each other despite their differences. Without thinking, he reached out and placed his hand on the table, a silent invitation for her to take the next step. She hesitated for a moment before reaching out and placing her hand gently on top of his. It wasn't a grand gesture, but to both of them, it was everything. The human and the alien woman sat in silence for a moment, their hands resting together, the connection between them stronger than words could express. It was an unexpected bond, one neither of them had ever anticipated. But in that moment, they both understood that it was real, and it was only just beginning. The human couldn't help but notice the subtle changes in the alien woman. Over the past few weeks, her demeanor had shifted, becoming softer, more open. She still carried herself with the quiet strength that was so characteristic of her, but there was a new warmth in her gaze when she looked at him. It was as if she was beginning to understand the things she had never allowed herself to before. The bond they had formed was growing stronger, and with it, so was the connection between their worlds. But the peaceful moments they shared were about to be disrupted. Word of their growing closeness had spread. The research station was small, and news traveled quickly. It wasn't long before the alien woman's people started to talk. Whispers filled the corridors, and the air felt charged with tension whenever the two of them were in the same room. One afternoon, as the human was working in his lab, the alien woman arrived with a serious look on her face. She had a distant expression, almost like a shadow had crossed over her usual calm demeanor. He immediately noticed the difference and stood up from his desk. "Is something wrong?" he asked, concern filling his voice. The alien woman's eyes were focused on the floor as she spoke. "I've been called in for a meeting with my people," she said, her tone flat. "They've heard about us, about our connection." The human's stomach tightened. He had a feeling this wasn't going to end well. "What do you mean by connection?" he asked carefully. "They think it's inappropriate," she said, lifting her eyes to meet his, her voice quiet. "You and I, together. It goes against everything my people believe in. Relationships like this aren't allowed. It's not the way we're meant to behave." The human's heart sank. "So, what does that mean for us?" he asked. The alien woman took a deep breath. "I don't know. But I have to go. I have to face them. If they demand that I sever this connection with you, I will have no choice but to follow their orders. My people are very strict about their rules." He couldn't believe what he was hearing. The thought of losing the bond they had formed, of returning to the way things were before, cold and distant, was unbearable. But he knew that, no matter what, she had to do what was best for her. He couldn't ask her to choose between him and her people. "You don't have to go alone," the human said, his voice firm. "I'll go with you. I want to be there for you, whatever happens." The alien woman shook her head slowly. "It's not that simple," she replied. "My people won't allow a human to be involved in our matters. They would see it as an insult, as a weakness." The human stood there, feeling helpless. He didn't know what to do or say. All he wanted was for them to be able to share this bond without fear, but the reality of their different worlds was pressing in. The cultural divide between them was too large to ignore. "I just don't want to lose what we have," the human said, his voice almost a whisper. The alien woman reached out and gently placed a hand on his arm. "I don't want to lose it either," she said, her eyes softening. "But I have to go. I have to face my people and try to make them understand." The human nodded, his heart heavy with the uncertainty of the situation. "I'll be here when you get back," he promised. "Whatever happens, I'll be here." The alien woman gave him a small, grateful smile before turning to leave. As she walked out of the lab, the human watched her go, his mind racing with worry and fear for what was to come. Would she be able to stand up to her people? Would they understand? Or would they tear apart the bond they had worked so hard to build? Only time would tell. The hours that followed were a blur for the human. He couldn't focus on anything. His mind was consumed by the alien woman's departure. She had left to meet with her people, and he was left alone in the research station, his thoughts racing. What would happen? Would she come back? Would their connection be torn apart by the weight of her people's traditions? He couldn't stop thinking about how their bond had started, how something as simple as a compliment had turned into something so much deeper. He had never expected to care this much for someone so different from him, an alien from a distant planet, with a culture so unlike his own. Yet here he was, unable to imagine his life without her. As he sat by the window, staring out at the vast, alien landscape, he tried to prepare himself for the worst. He told himself that whatever happened, he would respect her decision. But deep down, he hoped against hope that she would return, that they could find a way to make their bond work, despite everything standing in their way. Hours passed, and just as the sun began to set, casting the planet's sky in shades of orange and purple, the door to the lab opened. The human's heart skipped a beat. The alien woman stood there, looking tired but resolute. Her posture was still that of someone carrying the weight of an important decision, but her eyes were filled with something new, something that gave the human a flicker of hope. She stepped into the room slowly, her gaze fixed on him. He stood up, unable to speak, unsure of what to expect. But before he could say anything, she spoke. "They didn't understand," she said, her voice steady but full of emotion. "They didn't understand how something so simple could change everything." She paused for a moment, as if gathering her thoughts, and then met his eyes directly. "But I told them that it doesn't matter. What matters is what we have, what we share. They wanted me to choose between my people and you, and I chose you." The human felt his heart race, a rush of relief flooding through him. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. "You chose me?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. The alien woman nodded, her expression softening. "Yes, I told them that I would not give up what we have, that I would not be forced to follow a path that doesn't allow me to be who I am, who I want to be. And they allowed me to make my own choice." Her voice faltered for a moment, and the human could see the weight of what she had just said, the courage it had taken for her to stand up to her people. "It wasn't easy," she admitted, "but I couldn't go back. I couldn't live a life without what we've started together." The human's heart swelled with emotion. He stepped forward, his voice trembling. "You don't have to explain. I understand, and I'll never ask you to choose again. We'll figure this out, together." She smiled at him, a smile that reached her eyes for the first time in a long while. "I believe we can," she said softly. "I believe we can make this work." The human reached out, taking her hand in his, feeling the warmth of her touch. In that moment, everything else seemed to fade away. The differences between them, the challenges they would face, none of that mattered. What mattered was that they had chosen each other, and that they were willing to fight for what they shared. "I'm glad you chose me," the human said, his voice full of gratitude and tenderness. "I'm glad I did too," the alien woman replied, squeezing his hand gently. "Now let's see where this path takes us." Together, they stood there, hand in hand, knowing that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them as partners, no longer bound by the rules of their separate worlds, but united by the strength of their bond. The days following the alien woman's decision felt like a new chapter in both their lives. They had both made a choice to be together, no matter the challenges that lay ahead. There was still uncertainty, but the weight of their decision brought a sense of peace. The human felt lighter, knowing that they had crossed a boundary together, and that their bond was now something they could stand by, without fear of it being torn apart. At the research station, the atmosphere had shifted. There was a quiet understanding between the human and the alien woman, a silent agreement that no matter what the world threw at them, they would face it together. Her people had given her the freedom to choose, but she knew that their relationship would still be seen as a curiosity, even a rebellion. And though she didn't show it, the human could tell that the alien woman was still processing everything. The weight of standing against her own people's traditions was not easy to carry, but she was no longer alone in that battle. One evening, as the two of them sat together outside the station, watching the stars begin to twinkle in the night sky, The human noticed the quiet peace that had settled over them. The alien woman, usually so serious, seemed relaxed, her eyes soft as she gazed up at the stars. "You know," the human began, breaking the silence, "I never thought I'd be sitting here with someone like you." His voice was light, but there was truth in it. "When I first arrived here, I had no idea how my life would change." She turned her head to look at him, a small smile playing at the corners of her lips. "You thought your life would be normal." "Yeah, something like that," the human said, chuckling. "I never expected to form a bond with someone from another world. Never thought I'd be standing here, holding hands with an alien." The alien woman laughed softly, the sound surprisingly light and carefree. It was a sound the human had never heard from her before, and it filled him with warmth. "I never expected this either," she said, her voice quiet. "But I think I've learned something important, something about myself, and about what it means to be free." The human looked at her, his expression softening. "I think we're both learning that. We're both free now, in a way. Free to choose what we want, no matter what anyone else thinks." For a moment, neither of them said anything. They simply sat together in the quiet, each lost in their own thoughts, but also sharing this peaceful moment. It was a moment of understanding, of realizing that their relationship was more than just an unexpected connection. It was a testament to their strength and courage. They had fought for it, against the odds, and they had won. The alien woman squeezed his hand gently. "I've been thinking," she said after a while. "Maybe we can start something new, something that's not just about us, but about how we can help others. Maybe we can help my people see things differently, show them that there's strength in unity, in connection." The human's heart swelled with pride. "I think that's a great idea," he said, his voice steady with conviction. "We can do that. We'll find a way." They sat in silence for a moment longer, but it was a comfortable silence, one that was filled with the promise of a new beginning. A beginning that wasn't bound by the limitations of their worlds or their people's expectations. They were writing their own story now, together, and nothing could take that away from them. With the stars above them, and the night stretching out before them, they knew that this was only the beginning. The future was uncertain, but they were ready to face it, side by side. The weeks that followed felt like a blur of new experiences and challenges. The human and the alien woman, once strangers from two distant worlds, now stood side by side, not just as allies, but as partners. Their bond, tested by the weight of their separate cultures, had survived, and it was growing stronger every day. They had learned to navigate the complexities of their relationship, understanding that it wasn't just about the differences between them. It was about what they shared, a respect for each other, a desire to learn, and a connection that neither of them had ever expected. As the days passed, the human began to notice changes in the alien woman. Her once cold and distant demeanor was slowly being replaced by a warmth that was not just for him, but for the world around her. She started to engage more with the people on the station, sharing her knowledge of her own world and her people's ways. There were still moments of hesitation, moments when the weight of her past would cloud her expression, but the human could see the strength growing within her. She was no longer afraid to be herself. One evening, after a long day of work, the human and the alien woman found themselves outside, sitting together on a grassy hill near the station. The sky was clear, the stars scattered like diamonds across the dark canvas above them. The air was cool, but it didn't feel cold. It felt peaceful, like the universe itself was giving them a moment to reflect on how far they had come. "You know," the human began, his voice thoughtful, "I've never imagined this kind of life. I thought I'd come here, do my job, and go home. But instead, I found something unexpected." The alien woman turned to look at him, her eyes soft. "Unexpected," she repeated, her voice gentle. "Yeah," he said, smiling slightly. "I never thought I'd find someone like you. Someone who challenges everything I thought I knew about the world. And yet here we are, together." For a moment, There was silence between them. The alien woman reached out, placing her hand on his. "I never thought I'd be standing here either," she said softly. "But I'm glad I am." The human squeezed her hand, feeling a sense of contentment settle in his chest. "Me too. And no matter what happens, we'll face it together." The alien woman nodded, her eyes reflecting the light of the stars above them. "I've learned a lot in these past weeks," she said quietly. "I've learned that strength isn't about following rules or traditions. It's about standing up for what you believe in. And I've learned that sometimes it's okay to let go of the past and embrace the future." The human looked at her, a sense of pride filling him. "You're right. We don't have to follow anyone's expectations but our own. We create our own future together." As they sat there, hand in hand, the human knew that they had come so far. They had faced countless challenges and obstacles, but together, they had overcome them all. The bond they shared was stronger than any cultural difference, stronger than the barriers that had once seemed impossible to cross. And now, as the stars twinkled above them, they both knew that the future held endless possibilities. Whatever came next, they would face it together. They had found something rare, something beautiful, and nothing would take that away from them. The journey wasn't over. It was only just beginning. And the human and the alien woman were ready for whatever came next, hand in hand, their hearts aligned, and their future shining bright ahead of them.